Hi, I'm Ruth Appelhoff, the Executive Director of Guildhall. It's a pleasure to have you here today as I have an opportunity to tell you about the most amazing event any institution in the Hamptons has, and we do it every single year. It's the Guildhall Academy of the Arts. It's the most beautiful party, dinner, and celebration of the wonderful talent that we have out here on the East End in New York City. We are always so pleased to be able to pull this off. It's been going on for 27 years, and yet each year it seems somewhat of a miracle. We start here on staff about a year in advance, deciding where we want to have the party, what the menu will be. We do tastings, what the invitation will look like, and of course, most importantly, who we will honor. We always select people from the East End, people that have some kind of contact out here, permanent home, vacation home, annual visitors, and we select in the visual, performing, and literary arts, in addition to a fourth honoree for special award for philanthropy. This year we have 4 of the greatest people who were elected by their peers. The election takes place every year in the fall. It is of all of the Academy members that we have here, over 200 of them, who are outstanding in their fields. They receive a ballot, they vote. This year we have John Robin Bates, who is receiving the award for the literary honor, Lifetime Achievement. We have Laurie Anderson, the performance artist, who is receiving the Performing Arts Award. We have Bruce Weber, the photographer, who is receiving the wonderful award for visual arts. And of course, the special award is going to Dina Merrill, as presented by her husband, Ted Hartley. I should also mention that we're very fortunate to have Marshall Brickman as our MC for the evening. Marshall is funny, he's creative, and he, of course, wrote Jersey Boys. So we have all of these talented people at our event this evening, and we've invited several hundred people, all of whom are here in attendance. It's going to be a wonderful evening, and we are very, very fortunate that LTV has made it one of the programs that they are featuring this year. Thank you.
Hello, and with me again this year, I am lucky enough to be chatting with one of my heroes, who is Marshall Brickman. There
Hi.
he is.
Oh, hi.
You remember me from last year?
Yes, when I saved you from the rapids when the raft collapsed.
That was it. And my life is always indebted to you. And I've been reading even more about you, so I'm better prepared even than last year.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you if you write in longhand like your friend Woody, or do you use a computer? Because Woody writes in his bedroom, I now know, on an old computer or something.
That's what he would like you to believe. No, actually, Woody does write in longhand, and then he transcribes because he can't read his own handwriting. Because now we've all seen the documentary, right? So there are no more secrets.
Yes.
But he does still work. I was surprised to see when I looked at the documentary on his old, I think it's an Olympic portable and he was working on that machine in 1974 and 5 when we were writing Sleeper.
Yeah.
So he's a real Luddite.
Yeah. And you?
I am not a Luddite. I have more gimmicks than NASA. I have a computer, I have an iPad, I have an iPhone, I'm in the cloud, I'm in the ocean, I'm everywhere. So I really compose in my head, make notes, on a napkin, and then I transcribe it onto the endless scroll that is called Microsoft Word.
Yes. And so do you have a schedule for your writing? Do you write every day or as you're inspired? Or?
Well, that question carries an assumption, which is that I write every day. No, I don't. I wait for lightning to strike. And it's struck me often enough now that I can't remember too much. No, it depends on the project. If like for instance, for tonight, I found myself working on this thing that I'm going to do tonight for like 3 days, for many hours a day. I didn't realize that I felt that this was such an important event in my life, but it is.
Well, we're honored to feel that you feel that way.
I hope I don't really blow it.
You absolutely won't. You
all
look
here.
marvelous. And I've been doing the same thing because I have to interview all the honorees tonight. So I have been researching them.
Really?
Mine are not typed up. And this is what I have on you. Oh my goodness, so much. I wanted to ask you what are you on now? I know you have the Addams Family,
I'm
Jersey
on this-
Boys. What's
What
going
am I
on?
now?
Yeah,
You mean
what?
like a
He's
little
so literal.
Lexapro,
We hope.
Crestor. What am I on? Well, there's a movie of Jersey Boys which is in the works.
Oh, wow.
Um,
And I wanted to ask you, why did you choose the Four Seasons of all the groups to write about?
Another assumption. They chose us. They came to us and said we want to do a show about our catalog, like Mamma Mia, and I said no, I'm not interested. This is the show I almost didn't do, and I wake up screaming.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I'm a red diaper baby. I grew up singing "We Shall Overcome," not Sherry, or and now it's this industry. But no, they chose us actually.
Okay. So, word is out. Any band can come to him, and who knows what will happen. So, anyway, are you very involved in the movie? Is that what's taking your time these days?
No. The movie, they're no. In a simple one-word answer, not yet. There are many clones of Jersey Boys out all over the world. We have about 7 companies, and another show that I was involved with called The Addams Family.
Yeah.
Now has a second life. In fact, we just opened in Buenos Aires. No, I tell a lie. We opened in São Paulo last night in Portuguese, which was a whole trip. We're going to New Zealand, so I'm doing a little quality control on all these, and of course preparing my amusing remarks for the Guildhall Academy Award show here.
Well, we're in for a treat. And this man started reality TV, if you can believe it. He started with Candid Camera, which I remember and loved. That must have been fun.
Well, it was fun for some and very humiliating for a lot of other people. I had a 3-month stint working for Alan Funt on Candid Camera. I shared an office with Joan Rivers and Fannie Flagg. We were all writers, and it was an interesting experience. But it was really the first reality show. Alan Funt tapped into that vein of American hostility and humiliation that made him a millionaire many times over.
Yeah. And do you think you I think they need you. I'm getting the look. They're going to need you
I doubt that.
soon.
Really? Well, okay,
Yeah.
well, it's been nice chatting
Well,
with you.
it's great to have our annual chat. How's the year been for you?
What is this, March? Could be worse. And
Yeah.
and for you?
It's been a pretty good year. Yeah, the kids are growing up too fast, that's all. And yours?
Oh yeah, they're out. They're out.
How's that empty nest?
Well, we can walk around fully naked. That's about it. It stops there.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna
You're a
run.
pleasure. You're a
Oh,
pleasure.
thank
It's
you.
so
Very
great
sweet.
to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Keep on with all your great endeavors that we all enjoy so
Very
much.
sweet. Thank you.
Okay. Hello again. I'm here with Bruce Weber, who is the internationally well-known photographer and filmmaker. Welcome
Hi.
to the St. Regis.
Thank you. Thank you. I've done a lot of photographs in this hotel.
I bet you have.
Yeah. The last time I was here, I was with Jessica Lang and Sam Shepard. And Jessica got so sick that she was laying on the floor because she had the flu. And I said, Sam, shall I call it off? And he said, no, she's such a tough girl. Man, just go for it.
That's fabulous. Well, I know you and your wife, Nan Bush, travel all the time. Is that true, or do I have that wrong?
No, we're traveling, we're on the road a lot. But what's really nice is like when we get back to Montauk, that's real special for us, you know. And my dogs really love it there, you know, because they love the ocean, and we're just so happy in Montauk. So that's sort of like home to us.
Is that, I was going to ask where real home was. Because you're also, is it Golden Beach down in Florida?
Yeah, we live in Golden Beach, on the ocean too. My dogs like to swim there in the winter. See, I only have these houses because of my dogs, you know, they're not for me or Nan, you know. I just want to make sure they're happy, you know.
And, you know, we're about the same age. That's what you can find out when you Google people. So we have the same reference point. And we graduated high school like just before things got totally wild and out of hand. Remember all that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was just thinking the other day, I was so upset because my dad wouldn't let me go to Woodstock, and I was heartbroken. And I was like in my room, and I put a pillow over my head, and I was crying, you know. And yeah, that was really traumatic for me, you know.
Yeah, and so you were kind of lucky because you kept your head above water, whereas people a little bit younger than us were right smack in the middle of that. And do you think that's part of your success, that you were like a little more level-headed than a lot of people just a year or two younger?
I don't think so, because my sister was in the music business, and at that time, and she took me on the road, and she was working with Iggy Pop and David Bowie and Ike Tina Turner, and I was just a young kid just hanging out with my camera. So it was a good lesson in living and what to do, what not to do, you know. And I just learned a lot, you know, like maybe the hard way, but I learned a lot.
I have two brothers in the music business also who travel all over the place. So we have that in common as well. And so your wife, Nan Bush, you've been together 30-odd years. What's your secret?
I don't know, maybe the fact that I go on location a lot and give her some free time without me, you know?
No, she doesn't go with you everywhere.
She goes in the really nice places, but where it's cold or where it's really rough or there's a lot of snow, she doesn't go, you know? But she likes to go, like when I go to Paris or I'm in London, you know, or you know, she likes to go to really nice places, you know.
And what about now you have 5 dogs and most of them are 6. Are they all Goldens or?
No, I have 5 Goldens and I have 1 rescue dog. Her name's Billie Holiday. And I really encourage people to rescue dogs. And it's just the most extraordinary thing because they're just so indebted to you for their life. And they become such a big part of the family. It's really fantastic. And I will always have a rescue dog, always.
Always. And so all of them are rescue dogs? And
No, I just have 1, but I'll always have 1 as part of my
always
pack.
have one.
Yeah.
And it's a pack.
Maybe
And
more.
do they come with you when you travel?
They travel with me a lot. They're not here right now tonight because I couldn't bring them to the hotel. But I think you're allowed dogs in this hotel because I brought a dog in this hotel once. You know, not my own, but a dog for photographs. I always think about hotels, you know, if you can take a dog or if you can't, you know. And they're passing a law. I was just in California, you know, for the Oscars, and they're passing a law now that you can take your dogs to restaurants.
Really?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, you know.
That's just wonderful. And I had a name for you after reading so much about you. I call you a visual poet who lives to celebrate beauty and love. Does that describe you?
Wow, that sounds really bohemian. I love it. I mean, you know, I don't know. You know, the wonderful thing about being a photographer and a filmmaker is you can't describe what you do. You just got to do it, you know. I don't want to sound like a Nike commercial or something, but, you know, it's just like, you know, I mean, you're a journalist, you know, obviously, and you're talking to me, you're asking me questions. And so we're trying to make this interesting for these people out there, you know, and all these people are walking by looking at us like we're really odd ducks, right, you know? And so we're trying to...
Like we're odd ducks.
Yeah, we're trying to make the best
Yeah.
of it, you know?
Right.
And we just met each other. So let's try to think that we're not here and we're really at a bar downstairs at the St. Regis Bar and we're having a few drinks and we're just talking. That sounds better to me.
This is probably what he tells his models, like the famous Jane Gill, you know, who's a dear friend, how to loosen up. And like you're just going for a walk. I'm not here as the photographer, right? You must do things like that.
You know, I first started photographing Jane, who lives in Long Island. I photographed her for Ralph Lauren for so many years. And I don't know, I always have like a repertory company around me, you know, and I photograph people sometimes 30, 35, 40 years. I photograph people. I'm starting to photograph grandchildren of a lot of people that I photographed years ago, and I'm really embarrassed because it's making me feel really old, you know what I mean, you know? But I'm really happy that I have that as part of my history.
And you also have this great passion for jazz, and you did a wonderful movie about your dog True, and then a wonderful music film about jazz, Chet Baker, and also a woman who lives in your building, I believe, downtown. You did a film about her as well, and her husband, the pianist.
Oh, let's see, no, I don't think I did.
No? Well,
Well, you stopped at that bar on the way up here.
yeah, how can you resist with the King Cole mural down there?
See what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
You know, so let's pretend
Yeah.
there. No,
Well,
you know,
tell
I
me
make a lot of
about
films.
Chet Baker then.
Well, Chet was like he was this extraordinary guy that I really wanted to meet for many, many years. And when I first met Nan, part of our bond together over a couple bottles of wine was a Chet Baker album called Let's Get Lost.
Yeah.
So
That was the name of your film.
right.
Yeah.
So that's why we called it that. And one day I was standing up here, not too far from here, during a snowstorm, right in front of Tiffany's, and Chet came by. He hadn't been in America for a long time because of drugs, and he came by in a convertible with the top down, and all the snow was falling all over him. He had like a tweed overcoat on, his hair was all slicked back, and he looked fantastic. And so,
That's a magical image just hearing about it.
you know, and I knew he was in town. So I figured out he was downtown at the Whippoorwill, and I went down and I said, hey, Chet, you know, I want to photograph you. And so I did, and then he said, well, would you take a picture of my girlfriend for me? And I said, sure. I always like it when people say to me, will you take a picture of my girlfriend or boyfriend? I always like that because, I don't know, I just sort of like the association. Of,
Oh, good. My husband is right there.
Oh,
He's a
okay.
handsome guy,
Yeah, he's a
too.
very handsome guy, very handsome.
Oh, you heard that from him. Hey, okay. Well, I want to congratulate you so much on this award tonight. It's so well-deserved, and you're going to have a great time tonight. And who's giving you your award? Is it Eric?
Chima Machado, you know? Yeah.
Oh, she's a friend of mine, too. Yes, I've been to parties at her house. What a great gal.
Yeah, really great gal. Yeah, thanks for making this so easy. This is really hard for us guys because I'm usually on that side of the camera.
That's right. That's right. Well, you're a delight. Just a guy, the poet, the poet of love and beauty. Here he is.
What can I say? Thank you.
Hello. I'm here with John Robin Bates. You like to be called Robbie Bates, right? Yeah. I love it. Okay. And he has won this year for the literary award you were honored this year in the literary department.
I am.
Yes, and
It would have been wonderful to have been honored in some other department too, but I'll take literary.
okay. Well, I'm sure you're multi-talented. You were just saying you're a good cook and you have a wonderful dog.
I didn't say I was a good cook. I said I cook. There was no wonderful.
Well, to me, anyone who cooks is good because I don't cook very much, so that's excellent. But I'm a great fan of good cooks.
Oh, thank you. So am I.
So, right now, I've been reading up on you and learning so much about your history, and it's so interesting. You're from all sorts of places here, California, South Africa. Is it also somewhere in South America? Brazil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
New York and Bridgehampton, right?
Yeah, the last one being home, really. You know, the most serious home. The place that means the most to me. Yeah.
Little old Bridgehampton does? Out of all of those, that's pretty terrific.
Well, there are places where you feel entirely comfortable, where you feel you're meant to be, where the air is right. Rio is great too, but I feel most alive, most like I'm inhabiting the right space when I'm out past the Shinnecock Canal.
Yeah, me too.
It is. It's just home. The sky is sort of a great blanket, and I love it. Yeah.
Now, you had enormous success right away as a very young playwright, and that's quite unusual and must have been a really heady experience.
I think I thought at the time that that's just what happens. No, I now know much better, but you know, I should have been my age at that age, and knowing that how lucky I was, and being careful with my whatever talent I seem to have. But yeah, I did. I had a good start.
And is your interest mostly drama, not comedy or musicals? Is it really focused on drama, would you say?
Well, I think things are funny, and in fact, what I write tends to be funny. Hopefully, it's serious under the surface. I don't know how to write musicals, though I do love going to them. But there's some new thing called comedy drama, or that they've labeled things. So I'm somewhere in there.
And what do you think of theater, how it is on Broadway and off Broadway these days? Are you quite taken with most things you see, or disappointed? How do you feel things are for you personally?
Well, I think that there are many different kinds of theater. There's a sort of commercial theater, and that has certain criteria that have to be met, and when they are met, as in Book of Mormon, it's magnificent. It's ambrosia. It's sublime. And likewise with off-Broadway, when plays are, plays of ideas or plays of great passion, married to great rigorous ideas, then I'm really happy. And every year, there are a number of great plays, both on and off Broadway, and there are a number of plays that one doesn't connect to fully. But I think it feels to me like a great time to be a younger playwright. There are lots of theater coming alive and doing good.
Do you feel the critics are quite generous in spirit with people in general? I think you've gotten wonderful reviews, and certainly you have the big hit right now at Lincoln Center.
It's on Broadway. It was Lincoln Center. It's on Broadway now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
at the booth
Oh, all
on
right.
45th Street.
What time?
Cities. Playing through June 17th at least. The critics, you don't really think about them when you're working. They want that would be really destructive. I think they tend to be. I think the best you can ask for is to be taken seriously, not to be loved, but to be respected. And I think all the critics in New York, for the most part, take their job seriously and take the writers seriously. It's a very hard job to have. I think it's brutal in many ways. And they can do more good than harm, usually. But when they do harm, it's very painful.
Yeah, and very financially devastating for so many people, and for the actors.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful position.
Yeah, you really have to put it out of your mind when you work, which I do. Otherwise, you're lost,
how important, and I know this is the theme of your play, but how important do you think it is not to be autobiographical as opposed to writing about what you know?
I think it's different for everybody. How can you not write what you know? Everything is autobiographical, no matter how distant it is. Everything is comes out of the things you've gathered and somehow refracted and retold. Autobiography, I think it's very important not to pretend that you own a subject, while at the same time owning the subject.
I totally know.
It's about being, I think, it's about being humble in the face of whatever it is you're writing about.
Do you spend much time worrying about changing things enough so that no one is hurt in your family or friends? Or do you say, I have to tell it like it is?
No, I mean, I've made many mistakes. The play comes out of my attempting to make sense of the nature of the sort of narcissistic act of putting things down on paper. But I think it was Joan Didion who said that all writers are betrayers, and I think I've become interested in civility and kindness, more than judging. I think I'm very empathetic. So when I write, I tend to understand why the characters do the things they do, even if they're heinous. I understand it.
Yes, exactly. And in your current play, Other Desert Cities, it's very multi-layered, and you see the side of every character, their flaws, their strengths, and your compassion comes out so much in that way.
I think if you sit there judging them, it's going to be a particular kind of flat experience, often called a screed. And
it's called what?
A screed, S-C-R-E-E-D. A screed is a damning sermon, essentially. And I don't do that. I have failed in so many spectacular ways as a person that
we love this man.
that
He's so humble.
Well, it's not really humility. It's true.
Yeah,
and I think you try and find yourself in everything everything you make people do in a play or in a film or whatever TV show has to make sense from all perspectives to me.
And I should say also that John was the creator of Brothers and Sisters on television, which ran for 6 seasons or so.
5 seasons. I stayed for the first season.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't suited to the rigors of network television, such as it was at that network at that time. So I left, and the show went on without me.
Interesting, because I was going to ask you which you enjoyed more, television writing, playwriting, because playwriting is a very solitary endeavor, I would think.
I'm a playwright. That cured me of any desire to have a life in television. I'm not saying that I won't create another TV show.
Yeah.
I'll never try to run one again. But I love creating them. And the only part that I was left with, to be proud about was the jobs that I created for literally a few thousand people or more if you spread it out. And I'd never done anything that had employed so many people and given them jobs for half a decade, whether they were actors or crew. Mm-hmm. And so that part of it meant a lot to me. The direction of the show, I would have preferred it to be much more about a matriarchy in America, much more about what it is to be a woman growing older, what it is, how men seem to stay boys forever and women age differently, it would have been a slightly more serious show. It would have felt maybe a little bit more like other desert cities, but though I liked it being funny too. But I couldn't. I think it wasn't the right time and place for me to be doing that.
How do you think you became this very perceptive, insightful writer? You must have been different as a youngster to be thinking so deeply about things. I imagine you always were. That's what I pick up.
Yeah, I have a disease.
Yeah.
I have empathy sickness. And whether I was in South Africa during apartheid, trying to make sense of the amorality of a system in which you lived simply by having servants and enforced separation, institutionalized bigotry. How do people who claim, and in fact are, good people, reconcile that to their daily lives? And I tried to make sense of that. I tried to make sense of being almost an only child because my brothers were so much older than me. So I was alone mostly in South Africa. And I felt that aloneness. I went to a sort of a couple of schools that were very different from anything we have here.
And you wrote a play about one of them.
Yeah. I wrote a play about a school called Clifton, which is called Blenheim, and I played the Film Society. And I think I was a very internally driven boy who found himself in books and the radio, because there were radio plays brought over from the BBC, and there was no TV, so I would lie in bed at night listening to sort of old British radio plays. And I just think I located myself in Dickens and in Mark Twain and some sense that back in the States there was a kind of countercultural movement that I was supposed to be part of, even though I was a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old. And, my parents were very accommodating.
I was going to ask you a couple of things. One is, what was it like then switching to Beverly Hills High School?
Well, oddly enough, the temperature of Beverly Hills High School, emotionally and sociologically, was absolutely indistinguishable from the
caste system?
Privileged white world I had lived in South Africa, in Durban. They were very, very closely matched. I think I was shocked by that, but it was different on some level. I was very comfortable. I was meant to be an American. People talk about I would never live overseas again, I don't think. I understand it here. I like the struggles here. And Beverly Hills had a kind of odd, wonderful, transparent glamour to it that I enjoyed. I really enjoyed even as a kid. I loved walking, we lived in Beverly Hills, not the expensive part, but still I would walk down the street and see Fred Astaire. I had an office. My first little office was upstairs or across the hall from Billy Wilder's. I used to see Cary Grant on the street. You would see Clint Eastwood. There were bookstores everywhere. It was a different town and a different time. It was much more small town like. And I think one of the reasons I love being out, in the Hamptons. My first home was it was in Sag Harbor for years. Is that this sense of a village is something that I find scale-wise to be really accommodating.
Yeah, it's very nurturing. I say I'm surrounded by a sea of affection living out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Tell me, I don't want to keep you too much more. I know you have a dinner.
A documentary.
Right, you never know where it will go. Yeah, I used to work for Dick Cavett. I learned from the master.
He's the master.
Yeah.
I loved his book that he's just written. I loved it, really loved it.
Yes, he was honored here last year, and I interviewed him.
Very, very good company.
Isn't he amazing? Yeah, his book is amazing.
I wish he were still doing it because there's nothing like that anymore. I recently watched Jack Kerouac, the episode, the interview with Jack Kerouac, and oh no, I'm sorry, it was William Buckley. No, it was on Buckley's show. Jack Kerouac and some other hipster of the time.
William Burroughs.
It was like, well, I think Burroughs was actually on. There were three guys. I don't know. Someone will correct
Alan
this. It wasn't Ginsberg,
Okay.
but
yeah.
Buckley was trying to get Kerouac to explain beatniks, and the conversation was so deep and meaningfully profound and interested. There is nothing like that on television anymore, with the exception of Charlie Rose.
Right. Yeah, bless Charlie Rose's heart. So, well, I like you, I don't skim the surface too much. So,
I actually do. I spend a lot of time on the surface.
well, you have to when you're going down so deep with your work. And the last two, the last two questions I have for you is: did you come from a family where you were greatly nurtured as an artist, and
Totally.
your people believed in you?
They knew I was a freak, and they were great about it. There was no insistence that I get good grades. There was no insistence that I go to college. I was articulate and I knew what I wanted, and they got out of the way and said, I don't know what you're going to do, but whatever you're going to do, I know you're going to be great at it.
Wow, don't we all want them for parents?
I would never do that with my kids if I had kids. I would
No.
be, a martinet. Well, I saw the trouble I got into.
Okay, you learned. And the last thing I'll ask you, and then go and have a festive time and stay on the surface
By which
then.
she means a drink.
Right. Is I wanted to just ask you briefly about your schedule for writing. Do you have a very disciplined schedule each day, or is it in spurts? How does it work?
I find this to be a remarkable thing, that so many writers are able to lock themselves up for 4 hours a day, and 5 or 9 or whatever. I think for about a year. I just think. And I keep writing down little things and cutting out more things, and I build a sort of file. And then one day, my self-disgust gets so profound that I am forced into action. It's like Hamlet. When will I do it? And that's how I feel. That was the most pretentious thing I've said in hours.
Well, now you are free to go and be totally unpretentious and have a fabulous time and enjoy all your awards and honors and accolades. Hello, I'm here now with Laurie Anderson, and she's receiving one of the honors tonight for which section are you being honored for? Because this woman is talented in everything.
I think in performance.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, in performance. And in studying up a little bit on you, I was so taken with your obvious intelligence that comes across in your work, but knowing that you graduated from Barnard, magna cum laude, and Phi Beta Kappa, yeah. And then you have your master's from Columbia in sculpture. And then you were an art critic for Art Forum, I believe.
Briefly.
Yeah. And out of all the various things you can do, has it ever been confusing? Have you ever had trouble focusing on one of your many interests and talents?
When I start doing a project, I often don't know what it's going to be. So, because I work in a few different ways, I'm a multimedia artist. So, it means you can do whatever you want to do, really. So, music or movies or stories or... So, sometimes I'll start work on what I think is going to be an opera, and it ends up being like a, potato print, which is not a problem for me. It might be a problem for the people who commissioned the opera.
Yeah.
Who think, wait, we asked for an opera, this is a potato print. What's going on? So, but one of the things is that so many of those types of work are more similar than we think. You know, that, for example, if I'm working on some visual things, I try to give it rhythm like music, so that if you're, you know, working on a film, it can have a counterpoint with the music, because you can see rhythm.
Yes.
And if you push the visual rhythm against the rhythm you hear, it can be a really interesting situation, or it can be chaotic. So I just try to use those things as a new kind of art form.
And Laurie, as most of you know, is also an inventor of instruments and one of the most advanced people with the technology behind music. And that's been an amazing career too. I mean, I'd need many hours to talk to you about everything you do. Do you ever get overwhelmed where you go, I'm not sure what to do today. I'm in this project and that project. Which one shall I do? Does that ever hit you or not really?
Yeah, I get really overwhelmed, and I can also just have zero ideas in any kind of thing. So which is for an artist kind of a point where you usually panic, or else you just go on a vacation or something. And so what I just try to do in those cases, when I don't have any ideas whatsoever, I try first of all not to start the sort of self-blaming, like, you're such an idiot, why don't you get to work? I try to stop that voice.
Yes.
And then just play with whatever I have, and just because I think that sometimes if you're just playing around with stuff, it'll teach you things. Your tools will teach you things. And also sometimes, when you have there's a big idea and you want to put it into your work, sometimes the big ideas make the work just fall apart, and it won't hold it. And so I try to find a balance between the form and the idea. My favorite kind of art, I mean, not that I know what art is, I really don't, but the art I like, you can't pull the form from the content. They are really the same thing, because artists work through things and colors and notes, through real sensual things, and that's not just the brain with ideas. Sometimes now with contemporary art, unless it looks like philosophy, it's not considered art. You know what I mean? So unless it has a really strong idea. And I think, I wish the philosophers would just kind of go, well, it doesn't have to look exactly like philosophy to be good art.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, I do know what you mean. And as many of you also know, Laurie is married to Lou Reed, and you two have been together since, is it 2008 that you got married?
Yeah, well, we met and got together. We've been together almost 20 years.
Oh,
but we got married only 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And it was, that happened in a funny way. I was walking down the street in California, and I was talking to him on the phone, and I was just kind of complaining. I was saying, well, there's so many things I didn't do in my life. Like, I didn't learn German, I didn't learn physics, I didn't live in Berlin, I never got married. And he said, well, let's get married. And I said, well, and he said, how about tomorrow? And I said, tomorrow? Isn't tomorrow kind of soon? And he said, no, let's meet he was in the east somewhere, and I was in California. He said, let's meet in Colorado and we'll get married. So we did the next day.
That is such a beautiful story. I'm so glad you told us that. That's just so romantic and beautiful. Was it just the two of you?
We had some friends, 2 friends, and a big tree. So it was really nice.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because when you marry your best friend, it's kind of, and somebody you've known for a very long time, it's a different situation than usually, when you get married. And a lot of people get married, they just kind of met the person, or they know them in a different way. I mean, I think getting married on impulse when you barely know someone is great too. There's nothing wrong with that. That's really romantic as well.
This woman is so pretty. She has these gorgeous dimples. And do you think the two of you would have worked if you had gotten married, say, 30 years ago, had you known each other? Or do you think the timing had to be a little later? Or were you kind of on the same path but just hadn't found each other?
Well, we met in Munich, not in New York. We lived near each other in New York, but we were both on tour a lot, so probably we wouldn't have met before that. We happened to meet in Germany in a music festival where they said, let's have the musicians meet each other and play together. And so we did, and that's how, so we met through music.
Yes. And do you collaborate a great deal, or do you work separately?
We do both. We have collaborated and played together and improvised together, and we're each other's critics. But we have our own separate things, and our music is pretty different.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't want to keep you. I see most people are getting ready to give you your big award tonight, and I'm very happy for you, and it's so well deserved. And congratulations on the great honor. And it was wonderful to talk to you. You're such a beautiful and lovely person in every way.